Cool. All right, we're gonna get started, guys. So housekeeping stuff first. So next week, so this is technically our final lecture. We'll have class next week, but it'll basically be like an in-class jam session. Sam will go over it a little bit at the end of his lecture. But if you have work that you want to show or you just want to come hang around, like in most jam sessions, that'll be next week's class. So we'll have like attendance grade and all of that, but this is functionally our last lecture. So heads up on that's the agenda for next week. Assignment. So we do have an assignment this week, and it's not actual work. It's surveys that you can fill out for us. Kelsey will talk about that at the end. Just heads up, there's an assignment if you want to do it. And finally, grades. We'll finalize all the grades sometime tonight. So all the grades that need to be dropped and like all the top 5 grades and top 9 attendance grades, that'll happen today, excluding like the last assignment and last attendance grade. So when that happens, just make sure your grades look good, everything seems fine, and if there's a problem, shoot me an email and we can talk about it. Cool? Any questions about any of that? Cool. And then the word of the day is product designer with 2 I's. Cool. Before we get started, I want to talk about the structure of today's lecture. It's going to be in a couple parts. The first part is going to be talking about the class for next semester. Second part is going to be about how to become a designer. And the third part is more how does a design team function. And the last part is going to be questions. So if you guys have questions about like design and startups and like what it's like to work on a design team, how to get a design internship, all that stuff, we'll have some time at the end for that. So just a heads up of what today's going to look like. Cool. So next semester, we are doing this class next semester, but it's going to be super different. This semester was like 130 people, huge lecture hall, and very like wide content and like just a lot of content to a lot of people. But next semester is going to be super different. It's going to be a studio course, and we're capping it at 30 people. So a huge change in numbers. Yeah, so around 30 people. And it's going to be a lot about like depth and working on your own projects and your own ideas rather than like abstract theory. And if you're taking this class, you can take the next semester again, and it'll count for credit. So if you're interested in like becoming a designer, like working professionally as a product designer, or pursuing that as a career, that might be a good class to consider. It's going to be 2 credits, Mason Hall, Monday 4 to 6, so it'll be 2 hours. But these are just like more details on that. But yeah, functionally it's going to be a lot more about like doing the work and just having a space to like know what to do and like having a space to just do independent work, get feedback, and really pursue this like career of design if it's something you want to do. So we opened registration for that, and it's filling up faster than we expected. So if you want to sign up, probably good to look at it soon. So just a heads up on that. And if you want to check out more, umagedesign.com/winter. That's the details on it. It'll be up. And if Sam has anything to add on that,
yeah, real quick.
Just some fun slides.
Hey guys, I hope some of you can join us next semester. Just a note on sort of how we're thinking about the course. This class was really intentionally pretty easy. We wanted it to be a class where you could take it, and if it turns out that design wasn't your thing, you can still get a good grade. You don't have to freak out about it. It's really very much of a lecture format, so we project out to you, and you take what you want from it. But this one is going to be a lot less like a lecture, more like a mini internship. It's going to be a lot more expected of you as a contributor. This, as Ahmad said, is for people who do want to be designers. So this has been kind of nice and easy and fun, but just be prepared to work hard in that class. It's not going to be a breeze by any means. So if you're not really sure if you want to be a designer, if you're not really sure if that's what you want next semester, maybe think twice. If you're really interested in really developing your skills, I think it'll be a really awesome opportunity.
Any questions on that class or details or anything? Cool. All right. Plug this in. So like I said, the next part of this lecture is going to be more about like becoming a designer. And we spent like this entire semester talking about like these details of like mock-ups, interactive design, wireframes, and that's all helpful and good. But now we kind of want to take the last class to talk about like how to break into the industry and like become a quote-unquote designer. And it's hard. Oh god, oh boy, that's freaking out. Let's get back up. Don't look at any of this. All right, it's hard. Yeah, breaking into any industry where it's judged on like visuals and like you're on the outside, it's pretty hard to break into it. But everyone feels, oh, it's moving by itself. Everyone feels this way. Oh my God. Why does it keep, I'm gonna stop.
Just yank it out of the side of it.
All right. I'm just going to use the thing. But the good thing is that everyone who starts doing design as a career feels that way, and that's fine. We talked about this in the beginning of the class. It's okay to feel like you're not a designer in the beginning, but it's something that everyone feels as they're joining the careers. The only thing you can do to get over that is to kind of produce work and join communities, which is kind of what we're going to talk about today a little bit. So what does a designer really do? We talked about a ton of things in this class, and sometimes designers at companies do all of those things. Sometimes they do a few of those things, and it really depends on where you're applying. So before you feel like you're not good at everything, including like wireframes, and interaction design, and visual design, that's totally fine. I know designers who do specifically just visual design. I know designers who do just like interaction design. I know designers who just work on like product. There's a lot of wide range of work available for designers, so don't feel like you have to be good at every single thing. Just know that you just need to know every single thing, but you don't need to be like the expert at it. But the word designer is really malleable, and it really depends from company to company. So don't feel over-intimidated by that. So here are my kind of 3 actionable steps if you want to break into the design industry. First is to find a community, second is to do work, and the third is to do work. So just going straight through that. Finding a community. This is probably the first thing and the hardest thing to get into, but you need to find people who are also into design, who are also into making things, and who just share that passion. Because if you're just by yourself trying to break into this, it's going to be a little hard. But thankfully, there's a bunch of people around Michigan that are into that. This next semester class is a good example. 30 people who are into the same kind of like passion of design. But other than that, there's like really cool things on campus like Michigan Hackers, Shift, and just like random people that you meet all around campus. So I think the first thing that I would try to do if I was breaking into design, and which I did, was find people who were into making things and find people who like cared and knew like what design was and would like appreciate working on stuff like that. And you should find like real people. Like I know a bunch of people who go to these events that are like shaking hands with people, saying my name, this is what I do, but that's like very fake. Like find real people, real students who are doing stuff and make stuff with them. And if you can't find a like IRL community, there's some really good online communities too. The one I always vouch for is this Facebook group called HH Design. I think the HH stands for like hackers and hustlers, which is kind of, but there's like a 10,000 group of people who are like sharing work, talking about design news, sharing like their work and getting feedback, and there's just like 10,000 groups or 10,000 people in one group just doing, or like people who just are getting into design and people who have been in the industry for like years. So if you can't find like an IRL community, I think this is a good place to start. I've hyperlinked the thing or the actual Facebook group in the slides. And I think it's a really good community to join and just passively consume content from. And so the second thing that I think is important is doing work. And this is like doing work on your own and making portfolio pieces for other people to see and for like employers to see. The important thing about portfolio pieces, and I think Sam is going to talk about this too, is you need to show process. So when you make something in the beginning, it's going to be kind of shitty, it's going to be ugly, and that's fine. The thing that you need to show is like going from that ugly version to going to the really good version. And almost everyone in this class had that. And like I graded everyone's assignment. I saw everyone have that change. So when you show your work, you want to show like, here's where I started, here's why it's really ugly in the beginning, and here's the things I did to make it better, and here's the final product. And that's like the mark of a really good portfolio. And that's what you need to do. You need to find work, you need to make work, realize what's wrong, and make it better, and then put that all up for like people to see and like just continuously keep doing that. Yeah. This was like the first thing I made, and it was questionable. But like I think I've come like a far way from that. But it's like just starting from this point. I think this was like last year, so it's like not even that long ago, right? And like I've grown as a person a lot since then, but it's just like the act of actively doing work and doing something you're interested in that makes content better. So yeah, you should continuously work on like side projects and work that you have. And then finally, or portfolio, I talked about this, show your process, show your work and all of it, like show the shitty and the good. That's what makes a really good portfolio. And then doing work is, in my mind, like getting actual internships at companies one thing that companies like to do that I've seen from the inside and from the outside is like they'll have these list of requirements that people need to have, but like no real candidate is going to fit like all of those requirements. So even if you feel underqualified, like feel free to apply to that company, because the worst that can happen is that you get rejected, and oh well, who cares? But like you need to apply to like a wide range of companies that you think you'd like to work for, and just like get actual experience from the inside, because it's like really different seeing from the outside like all these good designers working, and it's really intimidating because they make like great work, and then you're on the inside and you're like, oh, these people started with really shitty work, but then they kept doing it until it's like the final product which you see as the user. So doing real work is really important from like just a learning perspective. And then looking for work, I kind of mentioned this. There are more details we can talk about this if you have questions, but just like apply for anything that seems remotely good, even if you feel underqualified, because if you're underqualified, you just won't get the job, and like there's not much to lose there. There's not much to lose, but if you don't apply, you're potentially missing out on a really good opportunity. So just never hesitate to apply to like an internship or a job. And then I just want to end with this really interesting concept that I like to talk about a lot, and I just need everyone's ears off about this, is this idea called a little bit of slope makes up for a lot of y-intercept, which is a really easy thing to understand mathematically, which is like if there are two lines and one has a really high y-intercept but a really low slope, and one has a really low y-intercept but a really high slope, at some point this line is going to take over. So it looks a little something like this, right? Even though the blue line is at the bottom, if it has a higher y-intercept or a higher slope, it takes over. And that, I think, is a good metaphor for how you should treat learning and careers, where if you're the blue line and y-intercept is like what you know and like something good, you don't know that much in the beginning, and you're kind of a beginner, and that's fine. But when you look at the people in the red line, it's people who are like really experienced and been in the industry for a while, and you feel intimidated. You feel like you can't break into it. But I think the really good concept is if you can learn faster than them, you're going to overtake them at some point. And that's like a little bit of slope makes up for a lot of y-intercept. So if you feel underqualified, just keep learning, keep producing work, and just have a really high slope. And I think this is the exact quote where it came from, which is, how fast you learn is a lot more important than how much you know to begin with. And I think this isn't just about design, it's just about doing work and how to break into the industry. Just continue to produce work, and hopefully you'll be the blue, teal line. And that's most of what I had. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Talk about your Quora experience.
I can talk about Quora a little bit. Yeah, Quora was like my first real design internship. I hadn't really done anything before that. I just had done work by myself. And I didn't feel like I was qualified at all, but I applied anyways. Somehow I got the job or the internship. And it was interesting because like I'm not that good at visual design, but most of the work I did at Quora was like more like product road mapping and like doing interaction and like high level abstract thinking of like what a product should look like. And that's something I really enjoy doing, but that's not what I thought I would be doing. And it was like really different from my expectations. I really enjoyed it, and like it was something I like 2 years ago I didn't feel like I could do based on like the requirements they said I would need to do on the job listing. And it worked out well, I think. Yeah. Any specific questions on that?
He's also being modest. He has a job with them next summer too. So, just wanted to say that. That's really, really awesome.
I don't think it's clapping worthy. But yeah, if you have any questions about like how to get internships, how to get jobs, like where to look for jobs, totally happy to help with any of that. Like I've gone through that process. It's shitty. Yes.
Did you just throw in an application, or do you have some sort of connection to the West Coast that kind of landed you there?
Totally just applied randomly. I like saw that they're looking for interns, and I was filling out the application, and it was like one of the required fields was like portfolio, and it didn't have a portfolio, so I pulled like 2 all-nighters and made a shitty portfolio and just submitted it. And I think it was closing, so I was like trying to finish that up really fast. But yeah, I just kind of applied without like knowing what I was getting into. But yeah, it turned out to be really good. And yeah, if you have any questions about like how to apply to internships, like what people are looking for, where to find these jobs, because they're sometimes kind of hard because like this designer role is like fairly new for a lot of companies. Totally feel free to hit me up. Like I've gone through that process. It's shitty, it's hard, but it's totally worth it. Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Cool.
All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a designer once you get the job. Take my chances with this clicker. This is the actual cover letter that I wrote to my now boss when I got the current job I have. What I like about this slide is that it shows not only was I using authentic language to communicate what I was doing, and I also linked my portfolio here, but it didn't include a resume. And I didn't actually give my resume to my boss for 6 months after I got hired because he needed it for some paperwork. I think that's a pretty good illustration that the standard advice you get about jobs and resumes doesn't necessarily apply to the world of startups. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Also, I found this job on a post on Hacker News, not through like a network or something. You know, the networking that I did early on didn't really get me a ton. It's not that knowing people isn't useful. In fact, it's really useful. I'm going to talk about it more. But before I had skills, it wasn't really useful to have a lot of one-on-one connections because I mostly just found people who didn't really know what to do with me. So once I developed my skill a bit more, it helped. I wish I'd spent more time developing a portfolio earlier and less time shaking random people's hands. You know, when you work at a startup, one of the weird things is that it's hard to, you might not know what a startup is exactly. Like I thought it was a young company or something. There are a lot of design positions at companies that are not startups. But if you do work at a startup, the main attribute of a startup, some people say, is that it equals growth. The most important thing for a startup to do is grow the number of users they have, or the sessions, or engaged users. The most important thing is not to make money. That can kind of happen later. It's kind of this weird world where they just decide to flip a switch and suddenly all the dollars come in, theoretically. And the way that you do grow is you run these experiments. Just like we've been running here, you have a hypothesis about something that you want to solve for a user, you build it, you test it. That's really the process that companies go through. So with that in mind, this is just like a little bit on how to run your work in a company. I think a lot of the stuff we're talking about is, it's a little dry without having a great sense of it, but it's the stuff that basically this is what I wish somebody would have told me when I was in college, and I could have skipped a couple years of being confused about how this stuff worked. This is when I joined the company in 2012. That's the whole company. This is the company in 2013, in 2014, 2015, 2016. The point of showing this is that there's just a lot of different roles you fill when the company grows, because when you're the designer at this size, you fill a very different role than at this size and this size, obviously. These are the kinds of different people you interact with. I swear I was actually trying to draw a diagram when I started sketching this, and it ended up being this like nasty spider's mess. The most important relationship, I think, on here, the two most important, are the one between, see if this works. Nope. Pretend that I'm pointing to product management and design in web and mobile and backend. It's a relationship between product, which is either a product manager or a CEO, the person who figures out what you're going to build, and engineers who are actually going to build it. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the interface between those two teams now. Okay, so before you start something, you kind of get a brief sometimes, or product requirements. And this is not the right way to think about it, like you just get inputs and you just spit out designs. But knowing that this is a framework is really useful because it helps you have conversations with the person who's defining what the problem solved is. It can be really frustrating to get somebody to tell you to build some feature and then you build it and it doesn't solve the problem and they don't like it and you have to start all over again. So if I had to advise myself early on, I'd say spend a lot of time really working with what's called the stakeholder, the CEO, the product person, and figure out what the goals of the entire company are before you start your design. These briefs are like what we've given you for homework assignments. We need a way to get students to find a place to study with friends at U of M. And there's a lot of work that the CEO and these other people are doing to figure out that that's the right problem that's right strategically for the business before you start, if that's the kind of company you find yourself in. So pay a lot of attention to this. The way to get a good brief is to really just focus on the problem that you're trying to solve rather than the feature that you're trying to build. And another great thing to do in requirements is to figure out what kind of metric you're trying to move. That way, every time you have to make a design decision, you can say, is this actually going to increase this metric? This is an example of a real requirement that we used. We gave to some interns recently. Show users crop health imagery throughout the growing season on one field so they can learn what it is, crop health imagery, and decide if they want to purchase it. So it doesn't say build a preview or a pop-up or an email or anything in the app. It just shows the goal that this person is trying to accomplish. This is actually like the fourth revision of this phrase because we had to figure out, well, what if I just build a simple thing that pops up once? Like, well, it has to be throughout the growing season. It's this narrative that's important. So doing a lot of work up front on these things is actually really going to help you out. Okay, you sort of got a brief. You sort of all agree what it is. Now it's time for you to start your design process. This is the stuff you guys are all familiar with. My only advice would be to start writing down the things that you do and try to keep yourself pretty organized. This is an actual list of things that we've noted at one point in our design process that can help us get through the process better. It's not like how to do wireframes. I mean, there's some of that. But most of what this is how to communicate with other people on the team. So make sure you've got a good definition, good working hypothesis of the problem before you get into the nitty-gritties of the wireframes. Set up a meeting with your engineers to brainstorm ideas, not only so that you get their ideas and you don't miss obvious things, but so that they feel like they're part of this process and they understand what the project is and can advise you as you design. Different ways to design a workflow. These are all details and they change all the time. They're actually already different from this. But I encourage you to sort of be a student of your own process, document it, and share it with the team so that you can set expectations with the people who you're working with. The most important probably part here is wrapping up how to finish your design. As you're working, I thought this is a good thing. This is actually from our jam session with Duo. Recently, this is their entire product development process, which is a subset of their entire company's process, obviously. And what we've talked about this semester is that circle in the middle that says design. In all the research and most of the validation that we talk about is in that small little circle. So that's the reason that these documents and this communication pattern is so important, because there's a lot of work that gets done often before you get a problem, especially if you work at a company more than, say, 10 people. And there's going to be a lot of work that gets done after you touch this design. So these patterns are useful. All right, when you're done, you might have heard the word specs. This is sometimes, at some companies, what happens to a design when it's finished. Not all companies have this, especially smaller, more agile teams, but as you get to be bigger organizations, you're going to be defining the functionality of things. This is one spec from the same project I showed you before. An imagery preview that appears at the top of the page, and some examples of how it can work, what happens if you don't have enough fields, all these different use cases. These are the documents that cover all these edge cases so that it's really clear to people. I gotta be honest with you, I'm not sure I'm an expert at writing these yet, so I won't say much more. Another really interesting thing that I think comes out of your design work in an organization is sometimes these components that you build or these languages that you build. You guys have the experience where you're building a button for your design, and then you have to build that same button, and you use a symbol? Well, that happens across not just a single project, but our entire application. And oftentimes we'll use pieces of UI that we designed 4 years ago in something so that we can keep it consistent and users understand how to work with it. So often teams, this is an example of Airbnb building a design language. These are just the components, abstract components. This is not a feature. These are just chunks of UI that they define and maintain in a single document. This is an example for farm logs. You can see on the left, there's a lot of different versions of the things that we have. On the right are a bunch of different examples of just one, the dialogues, the pop-up things that appear. One that has an error, one that has a picture, one that has a text input, one that's a native system pop-up. So documenting these in the abstract and then using this as like a palette that you can dip your brush into and use, it's going to save you a lot of time. It's another thing I wish somebody had told me earlier on. Okay, so you work with a startup, you're doing these things, you're working with the CEO to define problems, you're building things, you're working with the engineers to build them out, you're doing your small little iterations, the whole company's doing big iterations and experiments, and then what if you find yourself in a position where you have to hire the designers? I'm going to give you my perspective from that spot to you guys if you're looking for work and how to build a portfolio. Ahmad already touched on quite a bit of this, but I think it's useful to give you an example of kind of a non-traditional portfolio that I really like, and a portfolio for somebody who actually had a job offer to. This guy named Ryan Gonzalez, this isn't something work he had done for a company that he ends up working for now. And I think it's a really good example of portfolio. So we'll walk through it a little bit, and then I'll ask you guys what you see here. there's anything that jumps out at you. Designing search for DoorDash. I hope he's okay with me doing this. I did this. Design is the process of deciding how something should be, is the first sentence in this portfolio. And the rest of this page is just text. There's not even any pictures. What we have now, he really goes over the entirety of the existing application, including some current issues in serious detail, and shows sort of a summary of what the application's functionality is now. Talks a little bit about his process and comparing and contrasting different ways of working. I thought that was really interesting. Then he talks about the principle he's using to organize the application in the new way, to define the problem, with some examples of other apps. Really puts together some action items. So, for example, items listing should be actionable. You can't just have a listing that doesn't do something. He talks about signposting theory and design to help him build out toward that goal. This page has 3 different options, not just one way of doing things, but he went broad just like we do in our design exercises. And he's talking a little bit about why each one can work better than the others. This is an example of some animation that he did. Discovery, browsing, and search. He's talking a little bit about tap areas and what they mean across different pieces of user interface. Sequencing and success metrics. How to know if you did a good job. Caveats and conclusion. That was a really impressive portfolio to me. That was about half to a third of it. I just took a couple screenshots, but it's a lot longer than that. Did you guys notice anything interesting? What jumped out at you in that portfolio?
Lots of text and very less amount of images.
Yeah, a lot of text, not a ton of images. Over throughout the portfolio, there's enough images to see that there's a pretty straightforward workflow. You can see how it works. But good product is a simple product, right? So there really didn't need to be that much. There was a lot of writing and thinking. Yeah.
They made it clear what his thought process was.
Yeah, very clear what his thought process was. Like, very clear, walking through all the different things he was thinking. He did a really good job at that.
Each step in the process was a heading.
Yeah, each step in the process was a heading, so it was well organized.
I have a question regarding this.
Yeah.
Would a recruiter be reading through this much big of a post?
What's that?
Would a recruiter who is looking at a portfolio, would he be going through this big of a post?
I don't know. I'm not a recruiter. This is somebody I met through a referral, and the recruiter asked about them a little bit, and once they sort of had a sense that they were good and they saw that they had done some work, they sent them to me, the hiring manager. And a company hiring manager is the person who's going to be responsible for making a decision about whether you hire them usually, and then that person would then work for that person. So this is something I was certainly interested in reading. Any other interesting thoughts on this? Obviously, we talked about showing thought process really well. Quality over quantity. This is maybe the most interesting thing to me. There's only one portfolio piece. There's only one project. That was fine for me, because you know what? I really got to see the detail of what he was doing. If this is truly the only thing he's ever done, that wouldn't be like annoying or disappointing to me as a man. I'd be like, oh my god, the first thing he's ever done is amazing. So if you're looking for like how many pieces do I need in my portfolio, I'd say the minimum is 1. The more pieces you have in your portfolio, the more pieces that you're giving to somebody to critique, and it's harder for them to focus and really understand one thing that you've done. Plus, you don't really know which one they're going to see, so put your best work out first. A portfolio should be representative of the things you're going to do for a company. So if you have work that's 2 years old and isn't that cool, everybody knows that you do stuff that isn't that good at the beginning. It's really probably not portfolio worthy. Most people I see who put together portfolios put too much in and don't give enough depth in the stuff that they do add. You've seen this a lot, right? What is the problem? Made something, did it work? So many portfolios that I see show the made something step, but they totally forget what's the problem, and they definitely forget did it work. It's really hard, but he really went in detail about what he thinks the issues were and why they were issues before he ever started solving them. That shows awesome thought process to me. Okay. I have a couple other thoughts. Oh, the GIF word. You guys know this? It's from Aladdin. It's where he's going, be yourself. I'll get it. I I think another issue that I see with a lot of young designers, and I would really encourage you guys to focus on when you're talking to companies, is to just to be authentic. If you're a junior designer coming out of school, nobody's really going to expect you to completely blow their minds with the work you have. It's okay to not know things. It's really okay not to be perfect at things. So if you aren't perfect and nobody is, don't be afraid to show that and talk about it and ask questions about it. Do not try to hustle the people who are going to hire you. They're probably better at this than you are, and they're going to see through it right away. So, like shaking hands and friendly emails and stuff, it might just bother them. If you use a buzzword and you use it wrong, they're going to be totally turned off. So ask questions and put yourself out there, and don't try to fake yourself too much. There's something to be said for faking it until you make it, but try to be authentic with who you are. Don't hustle, don't bullshit. This isn't to say that like you're already qualified to be a designer. If you want to be a designer and you're not there yet, the best thing you can do is to focus on that work and build up your skill set, so then you can just be yourself and you'll get into a position. But if you try to spend all your time on communicating that you are something you're not, trust me, when they hire you, you're going to have a miserable time at work anyway if you're not ready for that. Oh, this is something about, I just wanted to put this in here. These are some early FarmLog sketches from back in the day. These are not my first designs, and they were pretty rough. This is a flat UI, pretty flat UI design. It's like a wood background. It's like leather on the calendar. It's really, this is like one of the better ones I did. So, in the interest of being authentic, this is some shit that I did that I'm not super proud of. Not that long ago. Well, it's about 4 years ago. Alright, another thing, this has been really useful to me, is to try to see things outside of yourself. Try to get rid of sort of a tunnel vision and understand how all systems work together, especially when you join an organization. Honestly, when you're in kindergarten, that teacher in that kindergarten class is really focused on helping you succeed. And in elementary school, your teachers are there to help you succeed. In high school, it doesn't feel as much like that, but they really just exist. They got an education to help students succeed. And even in college, even if your professors seem like prickly or something, mostly they're there to teach, or at least a good portion of it. In companies, if you have a good boss, that's the case too. But the whole organization doesn't exist to help you out. The organization exists to solve a problem. And hiring is really tough. It's hard to train new people. It's hard to bring people into the social fabric of a company. So most companies would just rather not do it. The only reason they bring you in, I hate to say it, this is real talk, is to help them solve a problem, is to use your skills. So if you're going to ask questions and get advice from people, asking things from your point of view, they can help you out, but you're going to miss the bigger picture for why this is all happening. So for example, if you go to somebody and say, hey, can you give me feedback on my portfolio? Or, hey, what do I need to do to get a job with you? Or, hey, I'm trying to get this internship, is a deadline coming up? Those are all questions that are really useful for you that you might want to know, but you missed an opportunity to ask that person something like, hey, how is a designer at your org different from a designer at somewhere else? Or what does your organization need from designers right now? What are you guys struggling with? How does communication work at this organization? Those kind of give the person, hopefully, a genuine impression that you're genuinely interested in the bigger structure, the bird's eye view, so to speak, of how everything works together. So I really encourage you guys to try to think that way. It's really difficult, but when you hear criticism of your designs, for example, it won't feel so personal, like, hey, I'm not like this. What they're saying is this doesn't fit into the whole fabric of our work as well. Personal relationships are really important in your work. I don't want to give the impression that they weren't when I was saying earlier that you shouldn't be networking, but that diagram that we just showed for a second about the design process fitting into the bigger product development process, we've had such a narrow focus on that, but it's really important to try to understand everybody else and what they do. If you're an engineer and you work with designers, I hope this has been a good introduction for you to help you understand how to work with them. If you're going to be a designer, working with engineers is super important. Build quality, genuine relationships with people you work with. I wish somebody had told me that earlier. I would have focused more time on that. It's the honey badger, I think. this is going to be really tough sometimes, but what I found is that a lot of people who are in graduating school age end up doing kind of crappy things for a couple years. I did. I kind of moved out. My friends were in a band in the West Coast and kind of bummed around for a while. But I had a couple good opportunities and I took them, and I'm really glad I did. So just be brave, really understand what you want, and if something meets your criteria, go for it. This is like a really good time in your career to take huge risks. Like join companies that you think are only going to be around for a couple weeks and see if you get a couple bucks in the bank. This is a little bit weird, but it's going to be kooky out there sometimes. If you can be graceful about adventures, somebody told me that like the only difference between an adventure and a total shit show or something was the attitude you have for it. So there are really no rules. Like all the stuff we told you, it's really pretty made up. This is true for pretty much everything in like careers. It's really not as structured as school makes it seem. So carve your own path, have fun with it. But it just gets weird sometimes, and that's cool too. The last thought I had is something we talked about earlier. This is like a San Francisco coffee shop, I think. They got some succulents on the walls, and there's some people having a very nice dinner. They're probably going to take an Uber back to their Airbnb when they're done. This is cool, and it's great. And if you guys end up designing things that scratch your own itch, that's awesome. If you want to design a new photo sharing app, that might be something really useful to you and the people you know. If you want to design a new music playlist app, that's really cool too. But this is a different picture. It's a market in, I think, Vietnam. I don't know if they need technology, to be perfectly honest with you, but I know some people in the world do. And if you're going to spend your time on this, make sure you're spending your time on something worthwhile. I really would not optimize for salary at this point in your career. Go for something that is going to be something that you can feel is doing something useful and that you're going to learn. I did this, I worked for a farming app, I didn't expect to live in Michigan, and I don't regret it for a second. So before you jump on that thing that's super close to you, try to broaden yourself a little bit and solve a problem that somebody else has. I really encourage you guys to do that. Okay, next week, we're going to have a bit of a show and tell in class here. You don't want to show or tell, and your grades are good, you don't have to come, obviously. But if you do want to get feedback from the other people in your class, sort of an intimate setting, it'll almost be like a preview of the class we're going to do next semester. You can come in with some work and get some comments on it and feedback from us in depth, not just from the people here, who you can come up and see anytime, but from the rest of your classmates. We might take this opportunity to show a couple people's progress throughout the semester anonymously, because you guys have done some really awesome stuff. So we really hope to see you there. With that, I'll head to Kelsey. Any questions about all of this? Yeah?
You talked about success metrics. Defining a success metric.
A success metric is basically a number that if you hit it, it means your project worked. So for the example we had before, you want to give people a preview of some feature that we had. And a success metric might be if 20% of the people who see that preview click it, or X% purchase it, then we can say that's a success. That way as designers, every question we have, we can say, is this going to actually make that number go up or not?
So at which part of the design process do you decide that this is your success metric?
Ideally, you would design that success metric as early as possible, probably with the person who's the product manager, the CEO. Generally, those are metrics that go just beyond just the designers, the engineers in the project, and everybody will be working toward that number. Yeah?
You talk about designers working with engineers and engineers working with designers a lot, but I'd like to be as much of both of them as I possibly can.
Yeah.
What kinds of opportunities are there for that?
There are definitely a lot of opportunities. Let's see if I can do this. So I don't write code anymore, but I used to. I didn't write code here or here, but I wrote code here a little bit. I wrote all the front end code, most of the front end code for all the CSS here, and most of the front end code right before Chris joined here. So the bigger company you are, the more specialized you're going to be. If you work at a company who also focuses on designers and developers, at the same role, I know at Quora is similar to that. You can find a company like that.
Yeah, I'm just going to add on that there are some companies who hire designers that also code. So like when I was working at Quora, I spent more time like coding than actually like doing visual design. So it's part of it is like finding the company that does that. But if that doesn't happen, there are like jobs like doing front-end dev that's more like coding, but like just still some design involved in the process. So it's really about finding that like fit that works for you.
Very common job for somebody early in his career would be designing websites and apps and then writing them in HTML and CSS, for example, on websites, and moving to product after that. Any other questions? Okay, Kelsey's going to talk about a survey.
Okay, let me get back to that spot. Jeez. Okay, so I think you guys have probably heard from your other classes, but we would love if you guys would actually do this official class survey. We really, really value your feedback. This is the first time we've taught this class. I'm going to be teaching a class similarly to this class next semester, so it'd be good to know what you had thoughts on about this class. It's totally anonymous, so we won't know who said what. And we don't see the results until you guys receive your final grades. So that's maybe another incentive for us to get your grades to you guys. Also, this is going to be in Canvas. So if you guys just look on the, I don't know if you guys already know this or not, but for me, it's a new thing. Just scroll down to the very bottom of your page on the left when you're in Canvas, and it says Teaching Evaluations. Hit that, answer all the cool questions. And you guys can answer questions. Obviously, it's past December 1st, but the time is from December 1st to December 14th. Then we also have an unofficial class survey. This is actually very similar to the first survey we gave you guys on our first day of class. So this is the link. This will be clickable in the actual downloadable PDF, but also we'll be sending out a link in Canvas. So if you guys could make sure you fill out both of these surveys. This one's super short. It'll take you literally like 30 seconds. That would be super helpful. We really, really appreciate it. And yeah, oh yeah, also along with the assignment, this is what Imad was talking about a little bit earlier, is that once you guys get, this can count as an assignment for doing both of these surveys. So if you do one, you get half credit. If you do both, you get full credit. But in order to actually get credit, you just have to take a screenshot of the success message. It'll be like, hey, thanks for giving us, or thanks for taking this survey. So just send those to us as JPEGs or PDFs, upload them to Canvas, and we'll give you guys hundos, 100%. And that's about it. Cool. Yeah.
Please fill the survey out.
Please do. It's going to be great. Thanks. Also, have a good rest of your week.
Okay, thanks.
We said that we would stick around at the end for questions if you guys have any. We have less time than we expected. So if you guys want to head out, that's fine. But if you have any questions about like just the stuff that we talked about, next semester class, startups, jobs, design, all included, everything else, life, death, whatever you want, we'll be here for another while. So yeah, thanks for hanging around this semester. It was a really good time for us. It was like our first experience teaching class. So really appreciate everyone coming through and like just, you know, taking this class with us. Thank you guys.
Also, one last thing too. I know we keep like saying bye. This is the fourth time we'll say bye. Like Imad was saying earlier, just seeing your progression of the designs from your homework assignments throughout this semester has been really, really awesome for us to see. And we really appreciate the work you guys put into it. I know it's only a 1 hour credit class, but we do appreciate the work you guys put into it. So thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys.